So we have at the beginning of the seventh session of this seminar. I should say that we launched this course entirely as an experimental activity just to see if there's interest in this kind of subject. And we've been so pleasantly surprised by both the amount of interest, the energy that you've brought in, and the discussions that have happened, and of course, especially the guest speaker sessions. So we're now ready to put it all together and create this document that we said we were going to create, right? And the document is, let's say, a short 2 to 3 page letter that you, as sort of collectively representing the India of 2030, might write to yourself as a representation of India in 2020. So that's the final, the capstone of this seminar. And I just want to introduce some ideas that will help us make that synthesis happen, right? And what we call the grammar of this letter, climate grammar. And we call this climate-centric design, meaning that we want to embed engaging with climate in everything that we do, in all the systems that we want to engage with. Now, those could be systems that don't feel like climate change at all. So they could be, electoral politics. They could be social media, right? I mean, how do you insert a climate-centric way of looking at the world into everything that we do? That's sort of the challenge that we are trying to address in Socrates in general, but definitely in this course, right? So what is the goal of this session? Right. We have gone through a range of core imagination exercises. In fact, all the 6 sessions have had some kind of collective activity as part of them. And the synthesis I want to start with has sort of 3 big statements. The first one is that we don't have to solve climate change, right? So the usual way in which we address climate change is seen as, okay, here's this really big bad thing and we have to do something about it, right? So it's kind of, there is a nut out there and we want to crack that nut. And while nut cracking is a good model for many, many problems, I think for lots of wicked problems, nut cracking is a bad model. Instead of that, at least here at Socrates, we believe that we should aim for something different. Which is that we want to build a new flourishing society. That's really our goal, right? It's not to solve climate change, but to build a new society in an era where climate change might be one of the reasons why we can't build a new society. So it's an obstacle to a flourishing India rather than a standalone problem that we have to solve. So the good news about India is that much of India remains to be built. Both demographically, we are a young country, but also in terms of the infrastructure that is needed, much of it doesn't exist. And that is as much mental infrastructure as physical infrastructure, right? So both the good news and the bad news is so much remains to be done. We have the great opportunity to perhaps do it in a future-proof fashion by incorporating climate change into that imagination of a new society, right? And that's what I say is, can we write a new India in the grammar of climate change? And in these kinds of challenges, design is a very, very important way of understanding the task ahead of us, right? So not the kind of design that you may be used to. Let's say if you're a social media user or a WhatsApp user, which is actually also social media, it's a kind of design that's hooking you into spending as much time as possible on the app. That's not what we want. What we want is a kind of design that makes a better world, right? So a world in which all technologies, all policies, infrastructure will take climate change into account is the kind of design that we're looking for, right? Design just is a human activity that creates an artifact to better our lives. That's broadly how I'm looking at design. So climate-centric design, if it becomes the grammar of, of our human and planetary system, means that, for example, if you're building a road, okay, so if you're building a road, you want to do it in such a way today that the safety of motorists is taken into account, right? Ideally. So similarly, tomorrow you want to build a road in which its impact on climate change is taken into account. And then if you're passing a law, you want to make sure that you pass the laws in such a way that it is future-proofing the capacity of underprivileged communities to respond to climate change, right? And that's sort of how climate change will be baked into all the activities that a future society will be undertaking. So it could be everyday activities like, business, governmental, bureaucracy. It could be even at something as essential as education, right? What might that society look like? That's the imagination that we are trying to inculcate here. And it has happened before, right? Meaning that there has been a massive and very important model that we know from the past that has sort of entrenched itself into everything that we do in a society. And that's, of course, democracy, right? The idea is that everything that we do in a country like India is done through and because of democratic procedures. And so the grammar of democracy is now part of everyday life in India, right? And so when I say climate-centric design, I might as well also say, what is democracy-centric design, right? Democracy-centric design is not just that you fight elections or that you shout in a morcha, kranti, 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 or something like that, but also that when we create laws that correct for past injustices, right? We prosecute people who violate the civil rights of other citizens, say caste or gender or communal violence of various kinds. You also, of course, promote free and equal relations between individuals of all backgrounds, right? So this is sort of democracy as a technology that improves people's lives. It's not perfect by any means, but it has made the world a better place for many people, right? And that kind of democracy-centric design has addressed both material distribution problems, right? Like we want to distribute, say, governmental resources in such a way that it enables flourishing. And we put principles of equality and justice into the way that that distribution is done, right? So that we can lead flourishing lives as equals. So that's sort of how democracy-centric design, you might say, helps us build a better society. So I'm saying, can we do the same thing for climate? So here is the broad, you've probably seen this before in one of the other presentations. So the basic idea is there's a wicked problem. That it might be justice, it may be climate change. It has two components. There's a moral complexity to it. There's a material complexity to it. And those are in this common space that I call a moral commons. You want a way to engage with those in a sustained fashion. And what we think, and this is why when I said we have to build a better society, right? That the solutions have to be political, right? They have to be embedded into the mechanisms of political power, right? And that's what we call the wicked mind who solves that wicked problem. And we're hoping that through this seminar and these sessions, your minds have become more wicked. So now the question is how to make climate change part of the grammar of this future India. And again, there are two models here. One is, of course, through national policy. So it's very top down. You have international treaties through which you have national policy, and then hopefully that policy is implemented. But there can also be a bottom-up response, which is led by citizens, so people like us, and it's based on technologies and innovations that are done by startups and other organizations that are, small scale to start with anyway. So that's the task that this seminar was set out to address, which is that letter from 2030 to 2020, much of that work has already happened, right? And almost everybody in this room today has been in most of those sessions. So you kind of know what you have already done. We know the mechanisms that we are now comfortable with. It's just time to pull it all together, right? And to bring this letter from 2030 to 2020 into our collective imagination. So I'm going to start the breakout today. So let's just give me one sec. So we're going to use Google Jamboard for the brainstorming session. But before I do that, let me also share. So this document is what you had prepared 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to share that in the chat window. Sorry, Chrome is a memory hog. So Zoom and Chrome at the same time. I'm just copying that link. Now let me stop sharing for a moment. So I'm going to put the link in the chat window. So this is what you guys did 3 weeks ago. It has sort of the collective imaginations in it already. And now what you need to do, let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay. And this is the Google Jamboard, which also I'm going to be sharing in the window in a second. And it can open with this link. There we go. And stop share. And that's there. So that's the Jamboard. So Tarini, if we can assign people into the usual 4 breakout groups, what I want you to do is in each group, take a look at the existing document and reverse engineer it, right? So, and there are 4 groups in the Jamboard already. So you can see, I'll share my screen again, sorry. There are too many pieces of software we are trying to use. So that's the Jamboard. So each page, there's a blank page, right? So there's just group 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I would like you guys to do, and I think that group, the Jamboard doesn't need access permissions, but if you do, please let me know. I'm just going to create this. Let's see if I can change, copy link, change to anyone with the link. All right. Anyone in the link can be an editor, and done. Okay, so everybody who's in this should be able to use that link that I just gave you. And once we are assigned into groups, so what I suggest is group 1 do their concept mapping on this page, group 2 on this page, group 3 here, and group 4 there. And that'll just be the easiest way to do it, right? And remember, we are doing it on this, like just you don't need to be literal about it. You don't have to necessarily stick to these letters that you've already written, but it gives you enough, I mean, just to jog your memory. It has plenty of stuff for you to think about, and use the Jamboard to, so for example, I'm just going to make a little mess on group 4s, but if I use a circle, this is right, and then I can add some text here and say, or something like that, right? That's all it is. So just go into this Jamboard and start imagining away. So can we have the breakouts, please? Looks like everybody's back. Thanks, everyone. Again, we know the drill now. So somebody from group one, in fact, maybe these are small enough groups that perhaps more than one person can share their thoughts of how they did the concept mapping. Someone from group one, just jump in and start talking.
Hello, Sucheta here from group one. My teammates are Dhriti, Kaustav, Shashank, Anusha, and Suraksha.
Just give me 1 sec. I'll share that screen so that you can also talk over it. Here you go.
Okay. This is what we did. I think we were supposed to do a mind map or a concept map based on all the keywords that are available in those letters. We went ahead and picked up the keywords and started grouping them based on what we saw were categories that were forming by themselves because the letters congealed around those words. So you've got nature, you have got economy, people have focused on community or governance. There has been a focus on data-driven decisions, technology, and self as well. People have focused on how education has changed. There have been changes around job where we have got interdisciplinary jobs. Work from home has become the norm. That is as far as the job and education goes. People have focused on health. They're talking about better immune. People are aware of how their body responds to the pandemics that they have seen, and they have worked on their immune system. They talk about better food with better nutritional quality. And economy, yes, some of them have focused on most of them have focused on having a decentralized approach to economy. There is stress on reduced consumption. People have circular economy and nature, environment, sustainability has come up in most of the letters. Freshwater scarcity has been noted by quite a few letters, and a couple of letters have focused on balancing life with nature or going back to traditional roots is one letter talking about. One letter talks about people not identifying their gender. So that has come up. Governance has taken a lot of focus in most of the letters. Governance structures have changed. Some people talk about no monarchy. Uh, there are decentralized communities. Whereas a few, I think there was one dystopian letter which talks about capitalism has become stronger and it has become a leader. But another letter talks about how women are leading the change, most of it in the rural economies. And there is a letter which talks about how instead of politicians, it's business leaders who have led to the transformation of the society. So that's one thing that we saw. And underlying all this is many of the letters are talking about how data is being used to make decisions, and technology, yes, has been the bedrock of most of the letters. Everybody seems to be talking about it. Anybody else from group one? Please add to this. This is what I remember of our discussion.
No, you did a great job, Sucheta.
Thank you.
All righty. I guess that's group one. So we'll now switch to group two. Thank you, Sucheta.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. So I was not exactly a note taker. We all just combined and wrote our post-its over there.
Sorry, who is this? I can't see because I'm not. Yeah.
Anusha.
Okay, thank you.
So our team was with Samir, me, Vikram, Aprajita, and Arnab. We read, so we split up all the letters that were already there, and we sort of combined whatever points we got from the letters and added them together. So we start off by saying that the country is self-sustaining on its own. That is, we are locally producing and generating energy, food, all of it. So things like global recession does not hit us anymore because we are completely self-sustaining ourselves in terms of economy and everything. Second is we've started using circular economy for all of it. So we whatever is produced, we also recycle and reuse it, be it agro, be it energy, be it plastic, be it any of those items. Third is it's data driven, which was also a point from group one as well, that all the decisions are highly data driven, and this also involves in policy making and all of it. Work from home is the new norm, again from other team as well, and sustainable transport. So you do not have to. Most of the transport is either electric vehicles, and additionally, you also have. You do not have to travel to work anymore. Work from home is completely the new norm. Though another point that we also saw was that youth of the India is like massive part of the government. So the government is literally for the people, by the people, and of the people. And then you have the next. The you can see the second row is mostly about schooling and jobs. So you have first point where schools are just for knowledge and knowledge now. It's no more for degrees, and you learn about the carbon footprint that you have in schools itself. So where you're taught that instead of using a tissue paper, you can actually use soap and water to wash your hands, and you know that a tissue paper has more carbon footprint than soap and water would. Aprajita's point was that climate is literally taught in schools. So you have labs and outdoor activities which actually teach you about climate change and the impact of everything in climate change. The next point was about jobs, which is basically, this was really a good point where we talk about, the impact of your job itself on climate change. So if you're working for a data driven system, then you know the impact of your data itself on climate change, and you want to change that. So every job itself knows its impact on climate change. The next point was gender equality and inclusion, where, like the previous team said, you do not have to specifically mention your gender anymore to anyone, be it for jobs, be it for anything. And the last one was actually added like just before the breakout room ended. So whoever added it can quickly just add that point in and just explain that point. That would be great. Okay, I don't know who added the point.
Well, if you did add that post-it, please speak up. Thank you, Anusha. Otherwise, you can see there are already lots of common themes. Not surprising, given that you're looking at the same document. But there are enough interesting differences. Also, interesting differences in the way you've organized the slides. Look at that one. That's one, and that's two. So we'll see what three looks like in a second. Oh, there you go. Wow. All right, who's going for three?
Hi, I don't know if you can see me. There's something wrong with my video, I think.
I can't see you, Shashi, but I can definitely hear you.
I'm trying to show myself, but looks like there's some problem. Okay, never mind, I guess. Right. So we drew upon many of the individual and team letters that we built over the past classes. And this was the Jamboard that we came up with. So one of the first things that we looked at was the sorts of policies that we want to build to address climate change issues. And broadly, we want to think about solutions that are resilient to climate change. And that sort of involves looking at understanding what resources we have, what resources we can use, and based on that awareness, sort of take strategies. or develop strategies and solutions to also reduce waste. So we sort of optimally use resources. Um, and then sort of how do we do this? We look at a country that has increased decentralization of political power. There's a lot more equality. There's a lot more say for everybody in the system in policy making. We build or rebuild institutions, new or older ones, cultural practices and rituals that are centered around the new realities of changing climate. However, we had some people also think about India as a challenged country, even in 2030. And they thought that some top-down leadership and vision was still essential. But there was also some hope there, if I could put it that way, to say that some people demonstrated or continue to demonstrate moral leadership, even though the country had a lot more challenges, a lot more than we saw in 2020 in their point of view. Looking at looking at the state of economy, the more positive views were that there's a lot more economic equality. There was a point of view that people, laborers are thought of as individuals, as full individuals, and the sort of collective resource, collective abilities of all individuals are used for a common purpose when it comes to producing economic goods. And then specifically, somebody had a vision that the wage gap between the person paid lowest and the person paid highest in an organization should be no more than 15%. Right? And then we had a group of people that were thinking about, I would call, human values. There was a thought that there is no fear attached to having any identity that one wants to have. And in terms of the way that we think, we are more inclusive. We are not so much either or thinking, but are more both and thinking. And so as we saw earlier, we want to think about people as individuals and the collective resilience of everybody in the community is a goal. So that also speaks about more equality. And then there were some international thoughts as well, which is to say that India becomes a leader in the world and sort of building building cultures and communities around climate justice. And then there's also a vision of us not being a country with borders, and the concept of the passport becoming obsolete. And perhaps we're all citizens of one world, and our Indian identity lies in the culture and the community that we've been having. Yeah, there's another thought about working, and the principle seems to be that in 2030, we now work for a flow, not for a living. And the legacy that human people leave behind is interactions, not just kids or the end products of one's work, but also the full sort of substance of our interactions. There were a couple of thoughts that in 2030 we will have justice for species other than humans, so animals and plants will have some justice as well. There will be no, there will be far fewer species that are out to get endangered or extinct in 2030. Yes, and yet another thought that we will care more about joyful experiences, which might be transient, as opposed to material goods, which are also transient. Uh, and then, yeah, in the way we interact with people, we are more concerned about building relationships and less about hierarchy. And so that enables more equality between people. I hope I've covered everything. Feel free to add anything, three.
Shashi, are you there? You suddenly went into an audio loop.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay. For a while you were, at least for me, in a continuous loop. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I was just going, I thought I covered everything that I had to.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it was just a glitch on my side. You know, Zoom just told me I have an unstable connection. Okay. Any more contributions from group 3? Somebody wants to jump in? All right. So if not, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. This is Ranjit. This is Ranjit here. So I just added a couple of points, like how a sense of privacy would undergo a drastic change, and how technological tools will be used more for surveillance, and how we grapple with that, and how the sense of privacy will have a change. And the other point I was adding is, yeah, I think, yeah, I covered.
Okay. Thank you, Ranjit. Any others? All right. So now we are ready to go to group 4. Again, you know, it's interesting that both the visual layout and the conceptual layout have similarities and differences. Group 4.
Hi, this is Alpana here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we started with, you know, will things look up in 2030, or will it be a very negative sort of a scenario that we are dealing with? And then therefore we'll go ahead with our predictions. And we started by saying that it will be very positive. Things will have improved in 2030, and, you know, things are looking up. After which all our predictions were doomsday predictions saying, you know, cities are grayer, trees have been chopped off, and, you know, there is scarcity everywhere and stuff. But then on a positive note, we were talking about, you know, that water and waste management have magically are non-issues now. They've been managed with technology. Then politically, we had said that, you know, you can now now get to know who the candidates are well in advance, so you can study what they have done and what is their, you know, and then decide whom we are going to vote for. Then we had buildings have taken over the city, and we had, I can't really read this. Yeah. Can someone just consume? Prachur,
Yeah,
can you?
yeah. So we were talking about, I mean, we're talking about that there would be changes in governance and technology.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in governance, we spoke about how there was better, as Arpana mentioned, right? More participation from people in knowledge of the candidates and advanced knowledge of the candidates and actively understanding their political choices. There would be more, and, you know, sort of kind of reminiscing in a sense that in 2020, if we had made better political choices, things wouldn't have gotten so bad. and we would have active local democracy where people are actually putting climate-centric design, uh, like actively pushing policymakers to think through climate-centric design in their decisions, was how we're thinking about governance. And in technology, we had sort of said that there will be a lot of disruption, so there will be some pain in many parts of society. And for instance, in water, we imagined that there would be breakthrough developments in terms of so that we could ensure water for everyone.
Yeah, and we'd also talked about mindsets, right? Something about mindsets, where we had said that, the mindset has shifted from, economy and growth measures have changed to, rather than saying profits and money, we're talking about, people's happiness index and other criteria are measures of success rather than cash, money. Consumers are also, for the consumer one, I think we had said that the consumers now are very conscious that they have to consume responsibly. People are healthier. They are, after COVID, they've been taking care of their health better. That was on a positive note.
Interesting.
That's about it, I think. Does anybody want to add something?
Looks like no.
Yeah, I have something to say here. Hi guys, Prakash here. Yeah, I was the kind of guy who kept harping on the process. Maybe I read the brief a little too much freedom perhaps. Between 2020 and 2030, goals have been achieved, some may not have been achieved, and the intentions and the ideologies perhaps have been talked about. So I was trying to get a word in, trying to think for myself with others, what is there in 2020 which is going to lead the way to 2030 in terms of things which we already have, which could be worked upon further, to build upon further to get us there. Reimagination doesn't always mean getting things new out of nowhere. But so that's what I was trying to see if there's a path to get there. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So thank you, Alpana, Prachur, and Prakash. Lovely contributions. And now we are done with, I'm going to stop my sharing. These are, again, very interrelated and yet distinct views of the whole. So what we are now left with is creating a letter that is an actual letter, right? So we want to write, say, a 2 to 3 page letter that is, fully taking on our future. And again, I really like what Prakash just said, which is that there are parts of it that, like, it's okay to have some pure speculation, but it would be good to have futures that feel continuous with the present, and there are pathways from 2020 to 2030 there. So what I would like now are people, so what we need to write this collective letter, and when I say we, I mean you, because I feel like this is something that you own. And therefore, what I would love is, say, 2 or 3 people who take responsibility for shepherding us through this letter writing process over the next week. If you are interested, either speak up or mention your name in the chat window. So remember, it's not a huge, long, it's not a book. It's just 2 to 3 pages. It's a letter, right? We don't write letters that are, not anymore anyway, that are hundreds of pages long. So who wants to volunteer to be, so Arnab says yes, great. Who else? So the idea is to take these Jamboard sticky notes and everything, and that becomes the inspiration for your letter writing. So we have Arnab. I want at least 2 more.
Yeah,
Okay, Shashi says yes. Anusha says yes. All right, so we've got 3, and there's no upper limit. So if more people want to volunteer, they're more than welcome to do so. In fact, let's take two more if possible. Okay, Alpana says yes, and Prakash says yes. Great. So here's the task, and I will write to you separately via email. The idea is that over the next week, if the 5 of you can collectively draft a letter, even just a sketch, right? And then share it with me. I will share it with the group. And then anybody who's in our mailing list, including people who have participated in previous sessions and this one and others, can give in their comments and so on. And then we will produce a second draft and will be done. And that was what we will share, we as in you, will share in the next session. So reading out that letter will be the performance of the next session. Okay? So that's where we are at. Obviously, if you want to be, so there are 5 of us right now. So it is, it's Arnab, Anusha, Shashi, Alpana, and Aparajita. Oh, there are 6. Okay, so and Prakash. So great. If you want to be in this, please just add yourself to the chat window. More than happy to. The more cooks, the better it is for this particular dish. Okay, so I will write an email to the 6 of you soon, in the next hour or so, and just to get us all started on this letter writing. What therefore we can now do is come on video and say bye. We are done for the day. We kind of have the volunteers that have committed themselves to the hours section. If you remember the workflow, it was I, we, us, ours. So we have the volunteers who have committed to the hours artifact that we are going to produce. So thank you, everybody. This has been very lovely. And I'm amazed at the amount of work that we have managed to do despite, a pandemic and whatnot. So. Bye.
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 Bye-bye, everyone. Yeah, bye.
Bye, Ranjit. So Ram and Tarini, if we can catch up quickly, that would be great.
Just pause the recording. Stop.